Hello, this is Mercer from October Gallery. Thanks for joining us. Today we have an extraordinary artist. His name is David Lawrence. He's been affiliated with October Gallery for many, many years. How you doing, David?
I'm doing great today, Mercer.
Good. I know we're going to talk about the state of African American art, not just in Philadelphia, but across the country. But first, let's talk about you and give us a brief description of David Lawrence as an artist.
Well, I was a youth. I went to school at the High School of Art and Design, studied at Long Island University and at the Art Student League in New York City, and I've just been studying different styles over the years.
Okay, I've seen some of your recent work. A lot of pyramids, a lot of shapes, a lot of cubes. Tell me what that's all about.
Yeah, that's a style I coined pyramidism, and it's dealing with pyramids instead of my influences that I had, which was Romeo Bearden and Jacob Lawrence and Picasso, where they had cubes. I use pyramids, and the pyramids have geometrical designs as well as patterns of indigenous cultures. I use symbology of indigenous cultures, and I'm also using mixed media, which is airbrush, pastels, oils, and acrylics, some of my favorite mediums.
Mixed medium. You like mixed medium or multi-medium? You seem to like to mix it up a lot. Why is that?
Yeah, I'm known as a multi-medium artist because I've always believed that, when someone told me that you should only use one medium, I never believed that. So ever since then, I've just been mixing them. I keep them in their own positions and in their own territory, but I also layer them. I'm known as different. I might use oils over acrylics. I might use airbrush over acrylic, and I use a composition leafing, patinas, marbleizing, and then I use three-dimensional objects on top of everything to give it a three-dimensional effect.
Wow, that's incredible. Now I know we're going to get into the state of African American art, but before we leave this topic here, meaning you as an artist, I know we can see your work, or the audience can see your work at Black Art in America, is that correct?
Yes.
Which is blackartinamerica.com.
Under David Lawrence.
Under David Lawrence. And of course they can also see your work at octobergallery.com.
Yes.
Because I know that after that description, they'll want to take a look at your work.
Yes.
Okay. Now, let's talk about the state of African American art. And that's a broad topic. We only have so many minutes here to do that. But let's say 10 years ago, what was the state of African American art according to David Lawrence 10 years ago, and how has it changed in 2010? Now we're going to 2011.
Well, when I opened up my first gallery in the old art museum area in 1988, at that time, people were only buying one original painting, and I might only sell one original painting throughout the whole year. And a lot of it, was, you had, as an artist, you didn't want to represent yourself as a black artist because people were looking to not buy and patronize black-owned businesses. Now, today, people have so much art in their home, they have nowhere to put most of it. And I'm selling much more original paintings than I ever sold before in 1988. So I'm very influenced and very inspired by today's market in terms of how people feel about African American art and how they are supporting African American artists.
And supporting it on that level.
Yes.
I guess you mean 10 years ago, the print market, prints, giclées,
Yes.
serigraphs, lithographs, excuse me, limited editions, and open edition prints and posters, those seem to have been in the forefront more.
Correct.
And you're saying now people have evolved more and more into the original artwork.
Correct.
And you find that they're buying more and more of your originals.
They're buying more sculptures. In the beginning, people will only buy realism. If they saw it as a face and a portrait type style, that's what they really geared towards and bought. Now they buy abstracts, they buy cubism, they buy sculptural forms, they buy wall paintings, they buy African sculpture. So people are really mixing up their tastes. They're becoming more eclectic in terms of the purchases that they make. So I'm very influenced by the broad market and the broad diversity in which our client base is now buying.
So what I hear you saying is that the customer has migrated
Correct.
from a point of, you say realism, type work, more like portraits,
Yes.
And so now they've loosened it up, loosened their thinking up, their desires for the artwork up, because they've migrated from a point where it had to be tight, figurative, almost portrait work, where they looked at it and said, oh, that looks like Uncle Ernie, that looks like Aunt Thomasina, or whatever. Now they've moved more abstract, they've loosened up how they view the artwork, or how would you describe that? That migration, how do you describe it?
Before they had to understand, if they didn't understand it, they were afraid to buy it, or they didn't experiment, or they weren't, if it wasn't something they understood clearly, where they didn't have to think. That's the kind of art that they bought. Now people buy art that they have to think, they have to reflect on, they have to give a perspective of it. They want to get the artist's feedback on what they were trying to create and why they created it. So there's a lot more informed, educated people out there about art. And they have much more greater interest for it than they had 20 years ago, 10 years ago. That's why they don't mind spending, investing in art, and spending their money on it.
So that education process, let's look at that.
Okay.
If we go back to the 80s, when you came to Philly, we opened our gallery in 1985, Bill Cosby. The Bill Cosby show, that was an educational process where people could see the show, see a middle-class black family, or a black family, and in their home there was African-American art over the sofa, in the kitchen, in the bathrooms, in the hallway, and that made people aware that this art existed. Okay? And so that was a big influence on bringing people into the African-American art world. Now since then, in the last 10 years, what has happened that has educated people so? I imagine the shows, there have been a lot of major shows with catalogs that people can buy and they can read, and that brings the curve up. But let's talk about the expos, the events. In the last 10 years, I believe the expos were pretty strong across the country. Of course in Baltimore, New York, LA, Chicago, of course in Philadelphia, we want to forget Philly since we're here. But there were a lot of shows happening, a lot of big shows happening. Do you think that helped to take that curve up?
Definitely. I remember when I was first attending what is called the Black Expo, and that was a show that toured in New York City at the Jacob Javits, came to the Pennsylvania Convention Center, went to Baltimore, and went to Atlanta, Georgia. There was the Black Art Festival and in Atlanta, Georgia, and the New Orleans had their big festivals. I think as our people continue to go to the festivals, the Black Expos, the art festivals, they became more educated, they became more cultured. Art is about culture. That's the key. And as we become more cultured, because if you think about it, in ancient Africa, culture was a way of life. Everything we created in Africa was either artistically done or artistically inspired. We saw the world through art in Africa.
All right, so today, what is happening today that will continue to make that curve go up? The expos, there seem to be less and less of them. I know the economy has a lot to do with that, but is there a paradigm shift? Is it shifting to something else? Smaller, more intimate shows, more one-on-ones, or artists going into the homes and doing personal shows? And of course, that's an educational process as well. It's not on the same scale as when you get 20 or 30,000 people to an expo. But what do you see now? Do you see that the expos and the shows are going to carry that through the next decade? Or is there something else on the horizon that we should be looking at?
Well, I think now that artists are really gearing themselves to creating more websites, being on more websites. People are seeing it through the exposure that way. Artists are creating websites on different types of companies, and they're also more accessible because most people are buying online now. And that's a trend, that's a paradigm shift that's going on. Even our retail outlets have to acknowledge that. So we're in that same frame where we have to, because of the economy, we have to sort of go back a little bit, make our prices a little bit more reasonable for people to purchase until we get through this period of time. But mainly, I think the people now have such a great passion. We work out installment plans with them. We have to strategically change our way in which we sell to accommodate the economy, the way the economy is going. and make it so it's affordable and in people's budgets.
So the artists are getting creative.
Correct. We have to become more marketers.
Mm-hmm.
We have to become more strategic in the way we sell and how we sell.
Mm-hmm.
And so the more outlets we can utilize, the better.
Right.
And also licensing. I mean, we don't mind putting our art on mugs,
Mhm.
T-shirts,
Mhm.
posters, and that's another way that we are starting to get our names and our images out there.
Well, this is good. David, I want to thank you for joining us today. We hope to have you back again soon.
Okay.
And again, you can see David Lawrence's work at octobergallery.com, also at blackinamerica.com. Is that correct?
Black Art in America.
Blackartinamerica.com. And he's out of Philadelphia, so you can Google him, and please take a look at his work. And thank you again for joining us here at October Gallery Live.